The last good picture I have of them sits in a cedar chest now, wrapped in an old receiving blanket. I had to move it from the mantelpiece. Every time I'd pass by, their faces would pull me in, and the hollow ache in my chest would start all over again. In the photo, Leo has my son Mark's eyes and a goofy, gap-toothed grin. His arm is slung protectively around his little sister, Maya. She's clutching a dandelion, its white fluff a perfect, delicate sphere, her dark, curly hair a wild halo she gets from her mother, Jenna. That picture was taken 2 years ago. It was the last day I truly felt like their Nana, the last day love felt simple. If you've ever had the ground beneath you turn to quicksand for reasons you can't name, you'll understand where my story begins. It didn't happen overnight. It was a slow fade, a gradual turning down of the light. For years, Tuesdays and Thursdays were my sacred days with Leo and Maya while Mark and Jenna were at work. Our routine was the rhythm of my week. We'd go to the duck pond behind the library, armed with a bag of stale bread ends I saved just for them. Then we'd hit story time, their small bodies nestled against mine on the brightly colored rug. We'd always finish with warm oatmeal raisin cookies and cold milk at my kitchen table, their giggles echoing in the quiet house. They'd leave a trail of sticky handprints on my sliding glass door, prints I'd pretend to fuss about but secretly leave for a day or two, just to feel like they were still there. Then, about 18 months ago, the rhythm broke. Jenna called to cancel a Tuesday. Maya's feeling a little under the weather, Susan. Just a sniffle, but you know how these things go. Better to keep her home and resting. Of course, I understood. I was a mother. I knew how quickly a sniffle could turn into something more. But the next week, it happened again. So sorry for the late notice, Susan, but Leo's best friend invited him for a last-minute play date. I couldn't say no, his little face just lit up. The week after that, a dentist appointment for Maya that Jenna swore she had completely forgotten about. The excuses became a constant, drizzling rain. My 2 days a week with them dwindled to one, then to a few hours on a supervised Saturday. Jenna would be there, a silent sentinel on the edge of my sofa, eyes glued to her phone. Her presence was an invisible wall, thick and soundproof, between me and the children I had helped raise. The laughter was gone. The ease was gone. What had taken its place? I tried talking to Mark, catching him on the phone one evening when I knew he'd be driving home. Is everything all right, honey? I feel like I barely see the kids anymore. Did I do something wrong? His pause was just a second too long. No, of course not, Mom. Things are just hectic. Jenna's new project at her firm is really demanding, and the kids' schedules are getting crazy. We're all just a bit stretched thin. He said the words, but they felt like a script. There was no warmth, no reassurance. It was the first time I felt my own son was managing me, handling me, and the chill of it went deep into my bones. What was really going on? The turning point, the moment the hairline fracture in our family split wide open, was over a batch of homemade cookies. Desperate to reclaim a sliver of our old routine, I invited them for an early spaghetti dinner. I spent all afternoon in the kitchen, chopping onions for my secret ingredient meatballs, simmering sauce that filled the house with a smell of comfort and love. For dessert, I planned to make their favorite oatmeal raisin cookies. I remembered a passing comment Jenna had made weeks earlier, wondering aloud if Maya had a slight sensitivity to gluten. Determined to be thoughtful, to prove I was listening, I drove to the specialty food store downtown and bought a 5-pound bag of certified gluten-free oat flour. It was ridiculously expensive. I kept the receipt and the empty flour bag on the counter, a silent testament to my care. When I brought the warm, fragrant cookies out on one of my grandmother's china plates, Maya's face lit up like a firefly. She reached a chubby little hand for one, but Jenna intercepted it with a practiced, lightning-fast move. Oh no, sweetie. Remember what we said? Nana's cookies will make your tummy hurt, she cooed, her smile so sweet it was sharp. I felt a rush of confusion. Jenna, it's no problem. They're completely safe. I made them with gluten-free flour. I bought it this morning just for her. Jenna's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went flat and cold. Susan, it's so much more complicated than just gluten. We saw a specialist. The doctor thinks it's a whole spectrum of things, a gut flora imbalance. Raisins have too much sugar, it feeds the bad bacteria. And cinnamon is a potential irritant. We're waiting on a full allergy panel. She scooped Maya onto her lap, turning her away from me and the plate. It's just safer for her to eat the approved snacks we bring from home. Leo, my sweet 7-year-old grandson, had a cookie halfway to his mouth. He looked from his mother's rigid face to my bewildered one, his expression clouded with confusion. Slowly, deliberately, he put the cookie back on the plate. In that small gesture, my heart didn't just break, it atomized. I had poured love and care into those cookies, going out of my way to make them perfect and safe. In one clinical, condescending monologue, Jenna had transformed them into poison. But a specialist? A gut flora imbalance? When had all this happened? A few days later, still reeling, I sent a text to Mark. A strange, gnawing guilt had taken root. Had I missed a serious health concern? Was I a bad grandmother? Thinking of you all, I typed, my thumbs clumsy. Could you please send me the name of Maya's new specialist? I'd love to have a full list of her dietary restrictions so I never make a mistake like that again. The reply took 4 hours. When it finally came, it was 3 clipped sentences. Jenna is handling it, Mom. The list is constantly changing. Please don't worry about it. Handling it became her shield and her sword. She was handling the school pickups. She was handling their nutrition. She was handling their social calendars. And handling it seemed to mean one thing, systematically and efficiently handling me right out of their lives. Visits stopped altogether. My calls went to voicemail. Texts were met with silence. The real question, the one that kept me up at night staring at the ceiling, was no longer just what I had done wrong. It was, what was Jenna telling them was wrong with me? My answer arrived with the cruelty of a slammed door on Maya's 5th birthday. I wasn't invited to the party. The official excuse, delivered by Mark in a strained, rushed phone call, was that it was just a small get-together with her little school friends. My heart told me it was a lie. Unable to help myself, I drove to the park where it was being held. I parked across the street, half hidden by a large oak tree. It wasn't a small get-together. I saw a huge bouncy castle, dozens of brightly colored balloons, and at least 25 adults mingling while children shrieked with laughter. I saw Jenna's parents. I saw Mark's father and his new wife. But not me. I had mailed my gift. After the cookie disaster, I was terrified of buying anything that could be criticized, so I had made something myself. It was a beautiful, handcrafted dollhouse that I'd spent months building in my garage, pouring all my sidelined grandmotherly love into its tiny shingles, hand-sewn curtains, and miniature furniture. A week later, my phone rang. It was Mark. Yeah, Mom, she got the dollhouse, he said, his voice taut as a wire. Listen, we need to talk. Can you come over tonight? After the kids are asleep. Hope, fragile and foolish, fluttered in my chest. Maybe this was an apology. A reconciliation. But when I walked into their house that night, the air was so thick with tension I could barely breathe. Jenna was sitting at the kitchen table, her arms crossed, a portrait of righteous indignation. Mark stood beside her, his face pale and exhausted. He wouldn't look at me. What's wrong? I asked, my own voice a reedy whisper. Jenna spoke, her voice dangerously calm. It's about the dollhouse, Susan. She pushed a small object across the polished surface of the table. It was one of the tiny wooden dolls I had painted to look like their family. It was the father doll. Its head had been snapped clean off its body. Leo told us what happened, Jenna continued, her eyes boring into me. He said you were angry when you dropped off the gift. He said you were complaining about me and Mark, and you told him the doll looked weak and pathetic, just like his father. And then you broke its head off. Right in front of him. The accusation was so monstrous, so completely divorced from reality, that I gasped. I felt the blood drain from my face. I hadn't dropped the gift off. I was never there. I had used a local courier service, terrified of creating another incident. I had the email confirmation with a photo of the box on their doorstep. What? Mark, that is a complete lie. I was never here. I sent it through City Courier. I have the receipt on my phone. I fumbled in my purse, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Jenna waved a dismissive hand. Oh, Susan, we don't need to see your phone. We have our son's word. Why on earth would a 7-year-old child make up a story like that? She looked at me, her expression a mask of profound disappointment. He's terrified of you. He had nightmares. Maya saw how scared he was, and now she's afraid, too. The room felt like it was tilting. This wasn't just a lie, it was a carefully constructed fiction. A detail like that, calling the doll weak like his father, could only come from an adult mind. It had been planted. A seed of fear, watered and tended by his own mother until it bore poisonous fruit. My grandson was no longer just a child I loved. He was a hostage, being used as a weapon against me. What could I possibly do against a lie that wore my grandson's innocent face? The dam of my composure finally broke. Hot tears streamed down my face. That is not true, Jenna. You know it's not true. Why? Why are you doing this to me? What have I ever done to you? Mark finally moved, stepping between us. Mom, that's enough. Leo was hysterical. He was crying about the broken daddy. You need to leave. Mark, look at me, I begged, my voice cracking. Please, look at me. You are my son. You have known me your entire life. Do you honestly believe I am capable of doing something so cruel? He wouldn't meet my gaze. His eyes were fixed on a spot on the kitchen tiles. I think it's best if you go, he repeated, his voice hollow. He walked to the front door and opened it wide, an unspoken command. The message was brutally clear. I had been tried, convicted, and sentenced without ever getting to speak in my own defense. My own son was the bailiff escorting me to my exile. As I walked out into the cold night air, the click of the deadbolt behind me sounded like a prison gate slamming shut. My fight wasn't just to see my grandchildren again. It was a fight to reclaim the truth from a woman who was rewriting our family's history, one vicious lie at a time. And I was terrifyingly alone. The yearbook photo and the grainy newspaper clipping sat on my kitchen table like artifacts from another life. A high school debate championship from over 2 decades ago. The motive seemed so impossibly petty, so absurdly juvenile, that a part of me still couldn't quite believe it. But as I laid it alongside my binder of documented hurts, the canceled playdates, the cookie incident, the monstrous lie about the dollhouse, it became the lens that brought everything into sharp, terrifying focus. Jenna's campaign against me wasn't about my grandmothering skills or some perceived slight. It was about revenge. She wasn't just building walls, she was settling a score, and my son and grandchildren were her pawns in a game I never even knew I was playing. For days, I was paralyzed by the knowledge. What could I do? March over to their house, wave a 25-year-old newspaper article and say, "Your wife has been systematically destroying my life because I beat her in a debate tournament when we were 17? Mark would think I'd lost my mind. Jenna would twist it into another example of my instability, my dementia, my delusions. I would be the crazy old woman clinging to an ancient high school rivalry. I couldn't fight her on her battlefield of emotional manipulation. I had to create my own. My weapon was the binder. I had been keeping it for months, a sad catalog of my own erasure. It started as a journal to keep my thoughts straight, but it had morphed into an evidence file. Now, I refined it. I printed out everything, the text message chain showing canceled visits, the credit card statement with the charge for the expensive gluten-free flour, the email confirmation from City Courier for the dollhouse, complete with a timestamp and a photo of the package on their porch. I added my own dentist appointment receipt, proving I was in another town at the very moment I was supposedly terrorizing my grandson. Finally, as the last 2 pages, I printed the high school debate team photo and a clear copy of the newspaper article. I 3-hole punched every page and organized them chronologically. It wasn't a scrapbook of memories, it was an affidavit of the truth. My opportunity to present it came from an unexpected source. My ex-husband, Frank, called me out of the blue. We had been divorced for 15 years, but had managed to maintain a polite, if distant, relationship for Mark's sake. "Susan," he said, his voice laced with concern. "I saw Mark and the kids at the hardware store today. He looks terrible. Worn to the bone. I asked how you were doing, and he got this look on his face. He said you two aren't on good terms right now and that you had an incident that really upset the kids. Is everything okay?" My heart leaped. This was it. An ally. Frank, I said, my voice low and urgent. It's not okay. It's not okay at all. I need a favor, a big one. I need you to get Mark to meet me. Alone. Not here, not at his house. Somewhere neutral. Tell him it's important. Tell him it's the last thing I'll ever ask of him if he wants. Frank must have heard the sheer desperation in my voice. He agreed without asking any more questions. 3 days later, I was sitting in a booth in a quiet, slightly dated diner halfway between my house and his. The binder sat in my oversized purse, feeling like it weighed 100 pounds. My hands were shaking so hard, I had to wrap them both around my coffee mug to still them. Mark slid into the booth opposite me, his face a grim mask. He didn't greet me. Dad said you had to see me. Said it was an emergency. What is it, Mom? I took a steadying breath, reminding myself to stay calm, to stick to the facts. No tears, no accusations. Mark, I said, my voice softer than I expected. I'm not here to fight. I'm just going to ask you to do one thing for me. I'm going to ask you to look at this as the logical, detail-oriented man I raised you to be. I don't want you to believe me. I want you to look at the timeline and just ask yourself if it makes sense. I slid the heavy binder across the vinyl tabletop. He stared at it, his expression hardening with suspicion, but he opened it. I sat in absolute silence as he began to turn the pages. I didn't drink my coffee. I didn't speak. I just watched his face. I saw his eyes move methodically down the log of canceled dates. I saw a flicker of something in his jaw when he got to the receipt for the gluten-free flour. I saw him lean closer, his brow deeply furrowed, when he reached the courier confirmation page for the dollhouse. He traced the timestamp with his finger. Then he stared at my dental receipt from the same day. He must have read it 3 times. Finally, he flipped to the last 2 pages. The article about the Northgate High debate team victory. He scanned it quickly. Then his eyes landed on the group photo of the losing team from Northwood High. He stared at the face of the angry, intense, frizzy-haired teenage girl in the back row. He looked from her picture to the article, then back again. I could almost see the tumblers clicking into place in his mind. He closed the binder gently. For a full minute, he said nothing, just stared at the worn plastic cover. The dollhouse, he finally said, his voice a hoarse whisper. The thing that made it so believable. Leo. He described you perfectly, Mom. He said what you were wearing, that blue cashmere sweater I got you for Christmas. He said you smelled like your hand lotion, the lavender one you always use. The detail was so specific, so insidious, my heart ached for my grandson. Mark, I said softly. Think. When was the last time I actually wore that sweater? His eyes widened as he thought back. At Christmas dinner. And when, I pressed gently, was the last time Leo was close enough to me to smell my hand lotion? His eyes finally met mine across the table, and they were swimming with a terrible, dawning horror. The weekend before his birthday. Months ago. He sagged against the back of the booth as the full weight of the deception hit him. The story hadn't been Leo's memory of an event. It had been a collage of his happiest memories of me, carefully harvested and rearranged by his mother to construct an unbreakable lie. Mark didn't say another word. He just pushed the binder back toward me, stood up on unsteady legs, and walked out of the diner. He didn't look back. I sat there, my heart hammering against my ribs, watching him go. For one terrible moment, I thought I had failed. That I had given him the truth, and he had chosen to walk away from it. 2 days passed in an agonizing, silent void. I called no one. I barely ate. Then, on the 3rd morning, my phone rang. It was Mark. Can I come over? He asked, his voice thick with emotion. He showed up looking like he hadn't slept in days. He walked into my living room, stood in front of me, and simply said, I am so sorry, Mom. And then my son, my 6'2", stoic son, collapsed into my arms and sobbed. He told me everything. He had gone home and confronted Jenna with the binder. She had denied it all, of course, twisting and deflecting, accusing him of taking my side, of believing his confused old mother over his own wife. But when faced with the undeniable, chronological proof, the receipts, the courier confirmations, the dates that didn't add up, the elaborate structure of her lies began to shatter. The final blow, he said, was the yearbook picture. When he put that in front of her, she simply broke. The rage and resentment from a teenage humiliation had festered for 2 decades, a dormant poison just waiting for the chance to be released. The aftermath has been slow and painful. Mark and Jenna are in intensive family counseling. There was no easy fix, no magic wand. Mark is grappling with a profound betrayal, forced to accept that he was complicit in my isolation. I've had to accept that the woman my son loves harbors a part of herself that is dark and deeply wounded. My first visit with the children was at a park, mediated by Mark. It was awkward and fragile. Maya hid behind her father's legs. But Leo, after watching me for a few long minutes, walked slowly toward me. "Mom said you weren't really mad about the daddy doll," he said, his eyes on his sneakers. "She said she made a mistake." I knelt down so we were eye to eye. "I was never mad, my sweet boy," I told him, my voice thick. "Not for one single second. Nana loves you more than all the stars in the sky." He looked up at me then, a flicker of the old trust in his eyes, and wrapped his small arms around my neck in a hesitant hug. It wasn't the way it used to be. But it was a beginning. That was 6 months ago. We are rebuilding, brick by fragile brick. The visits are becoming more regular. Jenna and I speak, our conversations brief and carefully polite, like 2 diplomats from warring countries. We will never be friends, but for the sake of the children we both love, we are maintaining the truce. The cedar chest in my room is open now, and the picture frame is back on my mantelpiece. Next to it, there is a new photo, taken last week at the duck pond. Leo, Maya, and I are standing in the sun, squinting and laughing, a bag of bread crusts between us. It's a picture of a family that almost broke, a picture of a hard-won peace. It's a picture that proves that sometimes the fight for love requires you to become a detective in your own life, seeking nothing more than the simple, redeeming truth. This story is based on personal experiences and is shared for general awareness and entertainment. The specific details and outcomes are unique to this journey.
Your watch to the end. Be click here. You will hear another story from my grandma.